So well, finally is the day when we're to find out if whether is it the influence of the Saturnalia or maybe it's some cultural hegemony or perhaps it's some identity politics or the prevalence of capital, over the meaning exceeding through the narrative control. Whatever your view is, doesn't really matter because the answer is likely a bit of everything. And because since Zoroastrian deities were prized almost 3,000 years ago, and, and until someone decided to celebrate festivals in 1997, celebrations around December 25 have been marked as hybrid, syncretism, and controversy since ever. So, what's up,
Yeah.
Josh?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit like this red light I was thinking earlier. It is difficult to get the right color. It is difficult to get it to look right on camera as for everybody else. But in a way, there is something about it that hopefully will resonate with a lot of people. Like you said, whatever views Chad may have on Christmas, hopefully we will be able to look at different perspectives today and hopefully learn something and think about different ways so that people live Christmas, for better or worse. And if Christmas is a challenging time for you, for Chad, hopefully our conversation today will one help you celebrate Christmas. It's the 24th, and will also hopefully help you have a better day today and Christmas as well. And with that, let's confront your trouble.
Let's make conscious the unconscious.
Hi, this is Josh.
This is Santi. Welcome to this session in the Mind Quest.
So we want to talk about the holidays, mainly as it also happened that or the recording day happened to be on the 24th. So we figured it would be a good opportunity to, in general, explore Christmas as a topic. One way or another, talking about Christmas leads you to talking about mental health. It leads you to talking about community, another topic we talk a lot about here. And in many ways, regardless of what side or how you live Christmas or the holidays or whatever this is for you, the idea is that navigating that with the people around you is not always easy, right? Whether you think this is the birth of Christ and maybe your family not a believer, maybe to you this is a capitalist lie, but your family are Christians. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle. Maybe you're Muslim and you have nothing to do with Christmas. Hopefully, regardless of what regardless of where you are and how you see this, there's always that commonality of having to navigate with other people and having to talk about the holiday with other people and having to have other people in the table. So hopefully we will look at all of those perspectives today and maybe it will be easier to deal with your crazy uncle, Josh, next time they are on the table.
So yeah, the idea I thought was a little like moving outwards from this center where everything is like colliding. Starting maybe with the theme of inclusion versus tradition, right? Because that's what's nowadays the most controversial part, at least for one of the sides. So since it is not only Christmas that is celebrated, observance of such as Yule, you got Hanukkah, you got Kwanzaa, and also take place on or nearby these dates. Uh, and in some cases, even in the same December 25. So I think there's a lot of roads and ways to walk through this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that sort of as you like I said, we move away from the center, you start seeing sort of the symbols behind these different celebrations, right? I remember when I was in New York, I used to work in the Bronx, which is a majority black community. So Kwanzaa was the first time in my life I saw it in real life. It was really interesting to me to see how sort of black identity came into play with the holiday celebration. However, I don't necessarily think and this is like only like one experience, right? But I don't necessarily think that anybody in that meeting really wanted to replace Christmas with Kwanzaa or anything like that. It was seen as an addition rather than a replacement or something like that. However, in our company emails, they did say Happy Holidays. And I think this is kind of the first hint of where this sort of controversy or drama kind of spread. Because it turns out, normally I say that there is no evil machination. Well, in this case, apparently, yes, there is an intentional machination for this to happen. But it is not as evil as one may think. So it turns out that, in your family, probably both have the same beliefs or the same faith, or there's at least less variation, right? But if you think of a like multinational company that has operations in different countries, or that have like here in Calgary or New York, like in a big city with a lot of immigrants, now there is a function to this idea of saying happy holidays. And the function is I'm not going to send 20 emails to like every department and have them send 20 other emails to every like I don't know, group, team, whatever, customizing the right holiday for every person. Like we would have to ask them, which by the way is illegal. You can ask them on their fate, and then we would have to actually go through the work of customizing them. And obviously the lawsuit risk that I told you I'm Jewish. You still say Happy Christmas, Happy Christmas. Okay, now you are we're in the U.S. Now this is a lawsuit. So there is this very functional reason why big corporations and big companies did voluntarily, purposefully start making this change. And this is where inclusion sort of comes into play. And the idea is that the safest and the simplest way that you can sign a holiday email, a holiday greeting, a holiday card as an institution without like varied population of people working for you is to say happy holidays. However, like with everything, it started being taken to like the extreme. It started being taken out of context. Normally, we can talk about context in the sense of this cultural baggage. Well, this is also a context, right? The context of the CEO is writing to 2,000 employees is important context when we say they signed it as happy holidays. So it is curious that there is this, like with everything, like we often use this idea of, if you take it to the extreme, you cause problems. And here is kind of the same. Because if you take that inclusion to the extreme, if now everything is holidays, you start erasing the same things you are trying to preserve. Because now I don't care whether you celebrate Christmas, whatever, that doesn't exist for me anymore. It's all holidays, it's about the gift. It's about the basket that I'm giving you. So, again, like it is about the dose, like with everything, right? Like a little bit helps sort of give voice to all the people, the different variety of communities of culture that you have. if you take it to the extreme and completely negate the existence of those things and completely erase the difference in people, you are kind of doing the opposite of what you're trying to do. You are, instead of giving a voice to those minorities, you're erasing all of the voices, including maybe the one that you actually like. So it isn't counterproductive for everyone. So yeah, that's kind of the idea there in terms of sort of inclusion versus erasure, sort of when taken to the extreme.
Earlier I used the word syncretism. That is quite popular in the arts department, usually referring to how different cultures end up mixing. So it is not casual. I mean, I don't try to use it in an empty way because these festivities are always taking something from elsewhere and adapting to different public. Just sometimes, I mean, it happens in a more organic way you like, but there's also this forced blending, if you want, uh, where facts and the historical significance of the celebration. Uh, we know we can encounter a lot of folkloric roots and elements out there, but there are also these elements that have been included through commercial or industrial campaigns that have been forced inside, and all of a sudden they change meaning or their meaning is erased completely. So I think it's depending on the region too, but mostly globally, you're kind of seeing this same situation where all of a sudden the celebration has no ritual meaning anymore, but just a commercial function.
Yes, I think maybe to create it to what I just said earlier. I cannot think of any right now. But I don't know many religions that forbid you from buying stuff and giving gifts, right? And in many ways, capitalism has sort of taken advantage of that. That is the one thing that nobody is against, spending money. And there are some inappropriate jokes I can make there. However, I think right. And I think, again, kind of connecting it to what I just said. So when you have these two forces, right? On one hand, you have the incentive of capitalism, of the best way for us to sell is to not offend anybody and to make things as bland gray as possible, as bland universal as possible. And on the other hand, you have the loss of that sort of cultural baggage, right? Now, whatever it is, right? Whether it is religious, whether it is like a family tradition, whether it is a like a national identity, like on whatever level the celebration comes, when that starts to get lost and replaced by it's about buying, right? It's about the exchange. It's about upgrading, taking the advantage of the season sales to upgrade your phone and your computer, whatever, right? Again, the same way that I think in one way capitalism takes advantage of non-religious saying don't buy. I think we have to rescue the opposite, where whatever religion, whatever race we have to celebrate, it's probably about the people. It's probably about the bonds between one another. It's probably about I don't know, family. It's probably about I don't know, preparing for the new year, for the new season. And on top of this, we have I think the economic reality that would be like more local to 2025, right? So on top of these sort of demands, right? On one hand, the incentive of capitalism of purchase. On the other hand, the demand of, I don't know, maybe again, cultural tradition, right? Maybe family expects you to do something, maybe church expects you to do something, maybe temple expects you not to do something, right? Maybe you are of a particular sect that does not celebrate Christmas, and if you want to celebrate, you're in trouble, right? Like that, the opposite is also possible. The opposite also happens. And on top of that, right, a lot of these things for moving away or making your own choice, so it depends on having money. Maybe the work Christmas party isn't so bad if you can spend as much money as you want in a gift. It's going to be a lot more uncomfortable if the minimum gift is $40 and you cannot really afford that much money in this month. So now you have this additional layer of pressure to buy or pressure to spend or pressure to participate in these uh, spending, like I said.
Oh.
I'm thinking, like, how do we solve this? I don't know. So because this one's pretty terrible.
But okay, so let me put it a little bit on my own, like on my own terms and on my own path. So,
Mhm.
and as a heir of the Catholic traditions, because that not it's not only where I was formed, but what I choose at the end to
Mhm.
stay on, even though I got some issues with the church after 10 years working for them. Uh, I would say that the debate for me is, I would say, in these happy holidays, or instead of Merry Christmas, it's somehow absurd. I mean, people tend to get offended for anything or everything, and all of a sudden it's the perfect cause to stand a lawsuit and just in search for money from other people. So it's pure ambition for my eyes, at least. And I don't think, if you were to be, I don't know, Jewish or descendant of an African tradition, you will say to me, Happy Kwanzaa. Why should I be offended for that? Because it's your expression of this celebration. You were someone who is retaking the Roman representation and going around in a half naked, clothes, and show me your graves and saying me Happy Saturnalia. Well, I will say, okay, it's okay, fine for you. You're celebrating that. Not my celebration, but Merry Christmas. Anyway, so I think, as you said at the beginning, we're going too far with this thing about getting offended for stuff that shouldn't be offensive, actually, because we're giving out like goodwill to others in this kind of salutation we're using. So um, the thing is, this search of being inclusive with everyone uh, ends up always damaging others at some point, because you're, I don't know, like, protecting too much is somehow a way to make some others weaker at some point. And you can see that with your kids or with your dog. If you don't have kids, you protect them too much, they never end up growing the strength necessary to cover for themselves. So I don't think if it's really necessary. Uh, and somehow it feels like manufactured, like it's an artificial controversy. Like, normally it would have happened many years ago, decades ago, because we've been living in a globalized world in countries that are sharing with different cultures. And if the fight were to be organic, yeah, if the defense of these ideas were to be organic, it should have happened, I don't know, 20 years ago, maybe more. But all of a sudden, they're appearing now. Like, like it's not completely natural. So there's where I think the controversy is actually kind of happening. And since religion is part of a culture, because, like it or not, most of our countries have chosen side, one religion, mostly for, I don't know, the biggest part of their histories. You got this is part of your formation as a citizen, as an individual in some kind. So, for example, most Latin American countries are Catholic. So you're used to the traditions and elements or folkloric elements that comes from religion adapted to your specific country. Has its variations, right? But mostly we share these ideas. So these cultural ideas that are set on religion. And it it keeps on giving me this feeling that someone in a position of power is trying to somehow determine the default way of offering a seasonal greeting or how it should be done. And some would say that well that has no purpose. But we've talked about this, I think, in the past about how language controls the not only the way you end up thinking, but the whole narrative and the context in which things tend to happen. So may look like a minor thing, but actually could turn into a bigger thing. So is it just my view, or am I misinterpreting something in this psycho evolution that we're having in this podcast?
Mm-mm. No, I think you're picking up on kind of what I said earlier. That there is this is definitely something that has a top-down sort of direction. It definitely comes from like I said, a social inclusion of giving voice to those who traditionally would not have voice. Yeah, you said it very well. If you are in a Latin American country that is traditionally Catholic, if you are a Muslim person, you may feel erased from society because nobody recognizes that you exist. If you are a Jewish person, you may feel erased from society because the things that are normal for you are not represented at all in society. So, as a way, like I said, to sort of give voice and place and to those people and sort of include them where they are, because they are already there, they are already part of society, right? Uh, in the present, right? Well, probably historical as well, but especially in the present. So there is that function. However, you're also picking up on sort of I would say like more contemporary layer that it has, which is that it has been turned into a political argument. And at that point, it stops being about the people. At that point, it's about getting votes. I think that unfortunately, in a lot of countries, I know this happens for sure in Ecuador. I don't know if other American countries are the same way, but there isn't this nuance, for example, of understanding that Fox News is the propaganda arm of the political right, extreme right of the US. So they present Fox News as actual like information, which it's not. It is propaganda. They do not label themselves as a youth organization. They label themselves as an entertainment organization. Like they are not coy about this. However, like Equavisa is not going to take the time to say, this thing that looks like a newscast may not be a newscast. So I think a lot of on that level, it is very much this very American like, sort of sequestration of the word for these, like I said, looking for vote, for these looking for a reason for the people to vote for them. So you have to vote for me because Christmas is on fire, and then you have a Christmas parade on New York Mason Street with 20,000 people, but Christmas is in crisis, right? Like I think there is that additional level that I say it is very American. Unfortunately, it bleeds out into other countries. But well, I don't think anyone in the Philippines would say Christmas is in crisis, right? Like Philippines love Christmas. So yeah, I think there is very much that for the additional level that is less to do with the people, is less to do with like your everyday conversation at the table, and more about like this illusion that there is an attack of Christmas that is really happening. I think you are very right about that. I think there is a lot of manufactured drama, manufactured sort of outrage about this that isn't really real. Like I'm trying to think if at any point in when I lived in the US, I saw any kind of like in real life. Uh, I did go to a school that was majority Jewish people. So Christmas wasn't very big in the school. Uh, but they definitely said Happy Holidays. They didn't say like Happy Hanukkah in the emails. I don't think. Uh, I also had like a Muslim boss who, yeah, he just didn't celebrate. Like it wasn't like like an important. I mean, I think they were like planning to eat something like special, like something like that. But it was less about Christmas, just about like let's. I had the day off anyways because work gives me the day off, so let's do something on the day, and less about like celebrating Christmas. So like I don't know if really there's any side that really feels attacked by these like holiday issues on an everyday level. Like I definitely think there is a controversy, but I think it's more about institutional discourse. Like you said, like the people in power need to be mindful about the words they use because they words their words create. So I think on that level, there definitely is some discussion, but it's usually more about not raising people rather than trying to raise anything else. Like it could be formidable if if like somebody had the power, like you said, to erase a history of Catholicism by just saying Happy Holiday. You're like, that would be insane. Like that would be some like magic level mind control. Like at some point we like there are like thousands of years of history here that are not going to be erased for saying Happy Holidays instead of Happy of Merry Christmas. At some point, like it's important to look at that historical context as well. The US is not going to stop being Christian in 10 years if it has been Christian for like since its inception. The same thing, like American countries has been Catholic from the beginning. Like they were partly built by the Catholic Church and their different monastic orders. They are not going to stop being Catholic just because we say Happy Holidays instead of Merry Christmas. I think it is very much the opposite. It is about in this context that have this historical bastion of Catholicism, of Christianity, of Protestantism here in North America. Let's make space for other people that have not been here or that are also here, but have not been traditionally being recognized as being here. Um, yeah, I think in some ways I'm thinking, for example, in Ecuador, we do hear about the Inti Raymi, for example. And we have those like more native celebrations. But I don't remember of like a winter solstice like party, like the same way like there is like the Inti Raymi celebrations and museums or whatever. I don't know if I'm forgetting it, but I don't remember if there is like a native winter celebration, for example, that maybe we could say, that would be something that is being lost or being erased. But um, I think it's more about that. It is kind of the opposite. Like it is more about creating a space for voices for people who traditionally have not had that space. Um, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question or sort of follow the idea we were talking about.
Yeah, well, I wasn't some stuff like why corporations got this fake neutrality, for example, or maybe, and you already mentioned this as media amplifying the conflict somehow. For the last part, was to say to you, okay, yes, there is. They call it Quilla Raimi. The Quilla is the deity of the moon, but it was not important for the Inca Empire. They just put it there to cover over the celebrations of the old uh, populace that was already in the territories they conquered. So
Mm-hmm.
because most of those people, those different cultures were actually somehow female oriented due to the fertility issues, so they tend to celebrate the moon more than the sun. But they were erased from history too because conquering war and dismemberment happens
Mm-hmm.
in South America too.
Mm-hmm.
even before this the Europeans arrived here. So, but well, just to have some ideas. So, thinking on what you were telling, what you were talking about, uh, I've got this idea, and talking, you talk about Fox, and I was thinking, okay, but these guys are always playing both sides of the coin. Okay, yeah, they may have a lot of propaganda during their news show, but they also got the other side, like the representations they got on programs like The Simpsons or maybe Family Guy or American Dad. They're completely on the other side. So it's like playing double face in faking neutrality somehow in this game. And now they are part of Disney. So you never know with the corporations, right? Because it's all about the money at the end. They don't really believe in the symbols, they just use them. And using media is so good way to amplify conflict somehow because as they say in Fallout, war never changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you say it very well. Like I think it's important to recognize for those corporations, but institutions in general, as the non-human entities they are. So no, Coca-Cola doesn't care about your rights. Coca-Cola's function is to make money. That is their purpose. So they will do everything in service of making money. Right? So and I think that's just I think valid for all of these mega corporations, right? Like these entities that have grown beyond the size and control of any single human being. Right? Like there is no one person at head of Coca-Cola that can say, okay, tomorrow we are going to become a environmentally friendly, human rights respecting, union supporting corporation. Like there is so much institutional inertia that could not just couldn't happen from one day to the other. So in that sense, they are inhuman and they will remain inhuman, right? In many ways, we have to be very clear about that idea, right? Like these institutions are institutions. And I think that's also the reason why, in many ways, they sort of fake the neutrality, right? Because they cannot be truly neutral. They will always go where the money is. And that sort of that's their alignment, right? And sometimes the way to make money is to pretend to be neutral, right? Like that's just how you make the most money because then nobody can say you're evil. Like one thing cannot say you're evil, the other one cannot say you're evil, so they cannot purchase your chocolate. And I don't know what that have to do with anybody in the world, but for some reason, chocolate companies need to pick a side. So I think that's kind of the idea. Um, it sort of falls down when the symbol, like of whatever the rainbow heart, cannot be followed by action, right? So if my social media person puts the rainbow symbol, but I declare that I don't know, if the CEO is accused of sexual assault and we cover that up because that's better for the stock, the company is acting the way it is supposed to act. Its purpose is profit, nothing else. So the hard was a tool of profit. Now a tool of profit is to eliminate the hard, is to protect the CEO. It is to, like, whatever, it's not about morals, it's about money. So that's why an institution like this cannot be sort of on any side, really. Like you cannot be of the bad side either, because the moment the bad side starts making money, they are going to talk around. Like that's the point. They are not about the moral compass. Their moral compass is stuck to money, and that's it. Right? That's what they are meant to do. So I think that's kind of the idea there. Obviously, like I think the problem is capitalism, so I don't have a solution for this. But I do think in general, corporations should be outside the public discourse. Like I don't know why Coca-Cola has to give their opinion on anything. They are there to make Coke. I mean, the drink. I mean, not
They
to
keep
give their
them that
opinion.
don't move outside of.
Exactly, not in there to give their opinion on the world, right? Like I don't know, like and so on and so forth. Like I really think that is a lot of the problem is that we have mixed public policy with making money, and so we are not making money for sorry, we're not making policy for the people. We're making policy to make money, and I think that's very much the problem there in many ways. The issue with corporations is that they are tools of profit, not tools of care or stewardship.
Yeah. So, well, I should say this. I think in my favor because I was. Uh, I've never been actually quite a fan of celebrating Christmas, as in the commercial way of celebrating Christmas. Okay. Well, at least these festivities. I can tell you a bit about the story behind because it's something out of a family tradition due to seeing this as kids. Somehow my parents decided it was not good for our growth. So they decided to take us out of this kind of celebration where everyone was competing for who's giving the best gifts or expending more money or whatever it was. So, and they took us out. Instead, we tried to build up on those Christian values about giving to others.
Mm.
So instead of buying gifts, you were supposed to elaborate, create something, invest your time and your effort in creating something for another one, thinking of them. So try to give from yourself, from your time, from your life, so that the other will receive something that is done by heart and not just by money.
Mm.
So somehow try to build up growth in a spiritual way. And I think somehow it worked because I don't really like to just give an empty gift. That is not actually something that uh, res- talk back and works from memories and the stuff that I'm living with a person. Maybe it's more important what I can do for them than just, I don't know, buy a pair of socks
Mm.
because or a horrible sweater or whatever that is common gift for from the northern parts. So well, down here also giving socks is common, so
Mhm.
and underwear maybe. Yeah, that there's that part. So however, in this particular year, I have noticed a very heavy-handed intervention in terms of how the celebrations are framed. And I mean, it's because usually you don't see Christmas, or I wasn't used to see Christmas as something where government is somehow involved. Any government, right? It was a thing of the church and your family, and that was it. But I've been seeing, well, maybe because I'm on the coast side now, but I'm seeing a lot of intervention of local governments making celebrations of Christmas. Well, their interpretation of the celebration of Christmas, because they bring like I know um, mascots of different corporations coming up to make a show where they partially move and dance and put something else on behind, and then you got the songs that are not necessarily the songs that are traditional to Christmas time, but maybe the most commercial ones that somehow resemble Christmas.
Mm.
We got Mariah Carey in the show, but that's not a Christmas song really. It's a song that include the word Christmas, but Christmas song. And then there is this this massive call to the shopping malls. Yeah, like somehow it feels like aftermath in the war, and they are
Mm.
calling all to the bunker and to keep safe inside the mall. So everybody is in there. There's nowhere to put a foot on, and all of a sudden, when you get in, it's like, what the hell am I doing here? Why I decide to come anyways? Well, maybe down here because you got like fresh air for a time. Because when there's a lot of people, the fresh air is loosened too. But and there is this like people running around, losing their minds. Like and some guys on philosophy nowadays say that the only true God is money. Yeah, and it comes like evident. They're not celebrating a Jesus or any other kind of you know religion related stuff. They are celebrating money and how you can waste it,
Mm.
because most of Christmas gifts are a waste of money. They're not something you are investing on for future. It's just a waste. Uh, and they took advantage of symbols that are already in the collective minds. They use them in favor of whatever they're trying to sell. Even you know, Holy Mary is used as a symbol to sell, I don't know, diapers, for example. If you got Joseph, stepfather of Jesus, and you got, I don't know, woodworking tools to sell. Yeah, be the craftsman, or whatever. So, but the thing is, they're moving the values of the tree that is Jules' example, that is being included in Christmas, is used everywhere. So everybody waits for the day where the tree is turned on,
Mm.
and everybody sees to that event, even if a silly event, they are just turning on a tree that maybe is a little higher than the one you have in your house, or maybe it's ridiculously high so you can see it from every street of the or every corner of your town. I don't know. The thing is, it's a symbol that used to carry a specific signification or interpretation, and all of a sudden it's just a pop culture element, right? So the kind of decorations we used to have, used to do these small dioramas of Christmas towns that in South America they are symbols because they are a representation of um, how Jesus' birth came to happen. But for what I understand, is Christmas villages in North America, for what I have seen, are mostly ice landscapes with I don't know, Santa Claus and stuff like that, and you got the reindeers and maybe a Christmas Carol events all around, and nothing's got really to do with what Christmas is, but other kind of celebrations that somehow end up connecting with this idea of the birth of Jesus. That that is supposed to be the Christmas, but it's actually some of them are coming from different celebrations. So then again, we get hit with this syncretism idea that cultures are overlapping and mixing and grabbing ideas from others and trying to connect. And we all know, I mean, Catholics know that the date of Christmas is not the date that Jesus was birthed. That's actually a cover up for the Saturnalia, because Saturnalia was, even though it gets its up points like celebrating the freedom of slaves and giving gifts and everything else, they also got this stuff where orgies and mass abuse system to happen because everyone was free, right, to do whatever they wanted. So what I want to understand is all this kind of so sometimes syncretisms happen on an organic way. Yeah, two cultures collide, they end up mixing, everything tends to go normal with mixed up races. They took from both sides and everything works. But sometimes it's like forced too for syncretism. I don't know if that even exists, but it's sounding like now. So who ends up benefiting from getting any benefit from it? And how does it affect us?
So I don't know if you can have forced syncretism because whoever is forcing it is the dominant player. So that's not syncretism. That's me erasing part of what you are. Um, I think syncretism always happens sort of, um, or rather, I think it's a process more than something that happens. In this sense that I think you use the tree, for example, right? Like I don't know. I would assume there aren't a lot of pine trees in Judea or Galilee or wherever Jesus was born, right? I would assume the Middle East not the best place to grow pines, right? So the pine has to come from somewhere else. But it is just a synchronic of Christmas as baby Jesus, right? So, for example, I think that's an example of syncretism. I don't necessarily think anybody at one point specifically said, okay, we are going to erase the desert by putting a pine cone here. Like, it was probably simply more about, local traditions that as time went on and people moved away, it stopped being so local and started spreading around a different part. I think that to this day, like you said, well, very earlier, there is still some locality to the way Christmas is celebrated. It would definitely celebrated differently, for example, in the big cities than it would be in more rural areas. Um, yeah, again, there will be a difference between North Americans and South America. Again, I don't know if this has changed, but I don't remember it was very common to see the exterior of shops being decorated for Christmas and having like their own little dioramas out there. That was very surprising for me to see, for example, Macy's like on New York, for the retool all of their windows, all of their displays, and make them all Christmas themed, almost like a public exhibition or like a public show. And people would like literally just go from all over the state, like from New Jersey, to see the the Macy Christmas display. It would be on the news. It would be like, it was obviously like a marketing ploy,
Yeah, yeah, marketing stuff.
obviously, but in many ways, it is associated with Christmas in New York, right? Like people look forward to the Macy's parade, to the Macy's displays, whatever, right? Um, so in many ways, these celebrations are a living thing, not a constantly change, right? Like if Macy's goes bankrupt next month, we won't have a Macy's display, Macy's parade anymore, right? So something else will have to take its place. So this is like a living thing that continually changes and grows, and I think that's where secretism happens, where as part of that growth, things sort of coming together. Um, the other way that is more related to this idea of force is when syncretism happens as a way to avoid erasure. And going back to Native Americans and Ecuador, this is what we can see, where, for example, you have the churches that were built by Native American, definitely not slaves. Definitely, they don't call them slaves because they were in slaves' paper. It just had to do everything they were told, and they were not allowed to leave or have any decision over their lives. Um, they build the churches, and they build their sun god into the golden. Like I'm thinking about la compañía. They build their golden idols into the pillars of the church. So syncretism appears as a way to survive. So the worship of the sun survives. On the day of the solstice, the sun falls right on Jesus' face, but it survives syncretized with the church. It is a church. It is Jesus who receives the sun, which is definitely not the sun god, definitely not the sun god. It just happens that Jesus is right on the way to, have these sort of occupy the place of a solstice celebration, right? So that's kind of the other way. Like I said, I don't think forced syncretism is a thing. I think at that point we are looking at what you were saying earlier at the beginning of this conversation. We talked about this idea of something that gets imposed in a way that actually erases or tries to erase something that's already there. So we're talking about this idea of taking sort of inclusion to the extreme, where rather than me giving voice to everyone and saying none of these is valid, it's all about uh, Coca-Cola holidays. Go buy, go sell, go the gift. It's not about celebration. Forget about feelings. Forget about everything else. It's all about consumption. It's all about capitalism. So I would be taking it to the other extreme. Um, that doesn't take. That doesn't incorporate. That disappear. That eliminates. That ignores. That's the opposite. Like I said, in the example of a church, right? Try to erase syncretism happen by something being created that still remains. So that's kind of it. It's kind of the opposite of erasure. It's syncretism. And it is in many ways a natural process. It happens all the time. Like people, family, human groups intermingle and mix and grow and evolve. Their beliefs, their ideas, the things they hold as important, also like intermingle, evolve, and change over time. Um, this is just part of the flow of human culture. Um, in many ways, force is there, not always in a positive way. But it has been like an unavoidable part of human history, right? Like we were just talking about the conquer of the Americas, right? Like that was an event marked by violence and genocide. Uh, and syncretism is sort of intermingled in all of that. So it is this complex sort of topic on a historical level as well, because it is filled with a lot of pain, a lot of suffering for a lot of people. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of the idea there in terms of syncretism as related to forced ideas of other people. There is definitely this connection because of the historical precedent. Um, but yeah, that's what just happened naturally because humans are like that. We just change.
Well, I mean by forced, literally forcing ideas into others, it's something that is also happening today. I mean, you've seen it different cultures around the world that are trying to keep up with their ideals. It doesn't matter where they move to or if they're staying in their own country. So you're seeing these kind of horrid representations of imposing my beliefs on others. In Europe, you're seeing them now with immigrants, but you're seeing a response also in Asian communities. Like, for example, the Japanese are not accepting any more immigrants, and they're kicking them off their country because they're seeing them as a problem, and that they are introducing violence and problems and conflict inside their country. So get out. And us in, well, me in my third world country, I could say yes. Sometimes your brothers, because Colombian and Venezuelan people are our brothers, tend to bring a lot of problems down here. But that was the 90s. Nowadays, apparently, we are the ones bringing problems everywhere. So, I mean, sometimes this happens. You're forcing your beliefs on others. And you see this a lot of in this violence culture of narco, for example, the drug dealers. They're imposing their beliefs and their ways on the rest of the civil population. In a way, I mean, when you are forced to hear like fireworks mixed with fire guns at the middle of the night, you all of a sudden understand that you are not living free in your country, but living because they let you live.
Mhm. Okay, so I mean, just to clarify, we're talking about extremists here, right? Like somebody
Yeah,
who
the
is okay.
extremes may do that.
Okay, yeah, I'm saying like I don't think like every Colombian has guns at their
No.
criminal celebration.
The extremes are kind of
Okay.
the ones that are moving the strings in this stuff.
Oh, okay. So there are definitely these minorities around the world that express violence, I would say, in the guise of religion, in the guise of ideas, right? But I think we have to be very clear that this is violence. This is not an ideology. This is Garco is not a culture. They are trying to make money. They are trying to sell drugs. They are not trying to celebrate anything, right? We have to be very, very clear about that. Like they are having zero interest in imposing their culture on you. They only want to make money. So we need
I
to
used to
be
think
clear about it.
like that, but wait. Let me give you some extra context because this is important and how it is happening down here. I think it may affect some ideas because usually I wouldn't accept that narco is a culture,
No, I mean,
but then
it is a culture. They do
you
have
got
a Garden culture. Yes, I listen to
cultural
Garden community. Yes,
products related to narco. So
yes.
all of a sudden the ideal changes. And then you start having these telenovelas about narco and series about narco. And then you got sculptural representations of them
Mhm,
or revaluing in their good deeds.
mhm. Okay. So I see what you're. Yes. Like I actually, yeah, I'm thinking of like, what's the name? Like my value is this basically same. Yeah. I see what you're saying. But then I would say, but then they are not imposing it on people. People are choosing that because I want the women, I want the cars, I want all of those things. So I am choosing to be part of this culture. So that's my point. Like I would say, when I think of imposition as extremists, I am thinking of Islamists, which are terrorists, that are causing terrorism using violence under the disguise of religion. That's what I think when you say trying to impose ideas. If you are talking about a drug dealer that is putting money to make a music video celebrating drugs, yes, that's Gacha culture, absolutely. I would not say they are trying to impose it on you. I think they are trying to spread the culture. If you like it, you can get in. If you don't, you can just change the channel. You can just watch a different video. I wouldn't say that's imposing. Imposing is, I would say, in that sense, I would say, I don't know, like I'm thinking of like a cartel or like an organized crime group taking over an area of a town, a region, a city, something, and at gunpoint saying, "Now you do this." To me, that's imposed.
Well,
When
that do happens. They
right, but I would
call it
say,
vaccinating.
I mean, but I would say that's a different, like a different discussion versus like
Yeah, it's for another moment. But
exactly. Versus the idea of, yeah, in agriculture, they are broadcasting these videos where they celebrate drugs and protests. Yeah, absolutely. I do think that's definitely a thing that happens. But like I said, like I think if we say, oh, they are, if we say that is imposing, we are taking the responsibility away from the viewer. Because now, oh, poor you. They are imposing on you with that music video that you voluntarily clicked on and voluntarily decided to watch. They are imposing on you, poor human. I don't think that's true. I think it's the opposite. I think we need to be responsible about the thing we do. So if I am choosing to watch all of these videos, if I am choosing to purchase the T-shirt with, I forget the name, by the way, I use the last name. If I get a T-shirt,
Pablo Escobar
with,
T-shirt.
if I get the Pablo Escobar,
Yeah.
I'm gonna make the Pablo Escobar painting. That's a choice I am making. They are not imposing anything on me. I am maybe being exposed to a culture that otherwise I wouldn't have been exposed, but I am making the choice of saying I like that. I want the T-shirt. I want to go to the concert. I want to give the money. The money will be used to move drugs across countries. Yes, but I mean this for the concert. I mean this because I want the autograph of the musician that I like. So I would say, I'm not going to post it. That you are choosing there. That is a willful decision. Um, yeah. I think there needs to be like that difference between like culture does exist. Imposing is a strong word. Imposing is somebody is actually forcing you to do this. Like you are in chains for this to happen. So yeah, but I definitely think that, for example, on an institutional level, again, we're going back to where we started, right? On an institutional level, for example, if you are a governor, a mayor of a town with a heavy problem with drugs, for example, I absolutely think you should ask yourself, should you prohibit like recording narcotic here? Should you prohibit playing these at parties? I think it's an absolutely valid question. But I think the answer to that question is very low because it will depend on the actual situation of every location, every town, every community.
Sure, sure.
Mm-mm.
So, well, let's connect with the issues of this of these postcats.
Mm-mm.
We'll try to lay that apart. So, let's talk a little bit about history and tradition
Mm-mm.
because it's I think, transversally connected with this. So, since at this point a little bit of internet is enough for you to find out that we got Saturnalia, the past, and the Yule celebration, and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, and other celebrations that completely uh, part of these late December celebrations, including the end of the year. uh, with more or less, I will say, the same underlining idea that was originally shared, right? We may be right on that part. The idea was share with your family mostly. So it may have some variations on the context. We can also learn that, as I told you already, that was an ecclesiastical consensus that brings up the idea that Jesus was born in December 25 because there was no date, no way to know. So they decided it was it, so they can get rid of the Saturnalia celebration for the Romans. And since the Catholic Church is founded over the Romans remains, it was, or it makes at least some perfect sense because it was the biggest celebration in Rome. Now, fanatics both for and against the date argue over the factual accuracy of these events. And when that shouldn't really be the matter. I mean, it's not substantial because the celebration is about other thing than it was exactly this date or it was exactly that other date. That's no date. I don't think it really matters. And we go back to the starting point that meaning is getting lost. So there's a lack of historical precision invalidate this spiritual value of the celebration. Because I mean, what we were talking at the beginning, right? It is a cultural event at the end. So if you get, we say like archaeological imprecisions on how it really happened, because there's no way for you to really know. And does that make the celebration valid, even if it's been celebrated for more than 1,000 years?
Mm-mm.
Also, why does the issue of the origin seems to be so important? I mean, from where it came from, where the original celebration started. Because, as I told you, over 3,000 years ago, these dates have been celebrated.
Mm-mm.
And we got down here in Ecuador that we have one of the oldest discovered cultures ever. It's called Valdivia down here. They do get celebrations at more or less this time because it was uh, one of the collecting moments of corn. So, because it was one of the main products at that time, and that's about 600 years 6,000 years ago. So to get some ideas on that matter. And one last thing is, what is it that legitimize a tradition and allow us to accept it or not? I mean, is really a way to legitimize a tradition, or it's like, it's social consensus that led us to said, okay, this is how we party on this, and That's it. We're all
Mhm.
agreeing on this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's start with the end and go backwards. What legitimizes a celebration? I would say it's a combination of both. I was actually listening to these the other day. It was about celebration. It was about the names of streets and neighborhoods in Quito, and they were talking about why some neighborhoods have an official name that is different from their name everybody uses. So there's about La Floresta, not called La Floresta. It has a different official name that I don't remember because nobody uses, but the official name is different. So, and something that I think they were saying, I think for the false with this idea here, because the discussion was that, like, what makes the game in the paper more legitimate than the game everybody uses, or the other way around? What makes the game everybody uses more legitimate than the game in the paper? And kind of the idea was that there are two sort of components that make something like this, like a public celebration or public something, legitimate. On one hand, you have the paper, right? The official in paper authority of somebody saying, on this day, this happens, right? So we were talking about the Romans and how they moved on from the Hellenic pantheon into Christianity. At some point, the emperor literally had to say, we no longer worship all of these gods, now we are Christians. So there had to be like the sort of very literal, very like practical moment of legitimization of something, right? Same thing with the street, same thing with like Christmas. At some point, somebody has to say, this is how we do this. But the second component is the people, is the human group that is actually being affected by this decree or by this decision. And I could argue that in the human group is actually who decides. The problem is that they don't always do it voluntarily. Like you don't always have all these people talking to each other, reaching consensus and making a choice. Sometimes it just happens. It just happens that the old name never goes away, like in the case of Street. It just happens that because the people with money, the corporations, say that this is how you do it because you want the free stuff. So there is this, like I said, there is this very much living process to all of these celebrations that give it legitimacy. And I think it is the process itself what makes it sort of legitimate. The fact that it is alive, the fact that it changes. The moment we can describe something like in an objective, precise academic way, we're talking about history. Because that's what we can describe with some academic discipline. What's happening right now is different to see everywhere at once. So there is that notion that there has to be these two elements of some institution, some authority, some order being brought in formally in paper, and then the people have to accept that order. We're back to this idea of imposition, right? Yeah, if the people don't want to do it, they are not going to do it. Like there is only so much you can like impose without violence. If you are the Spanish conquistadors and you genocide 95% of the population, you can impose whatever you want. Short of that, a lot more difficult to impose without violence. Um, so usually you have this back and forth. So if you think of this as a process, maybe at the beginning there is only the paper that says, okay, this is how we do this now. No more Saturnalia, no more orgies, no more like wine. We're Christians now. Maybe the first year, a little orgy still happens. Second year, little orgy but in secret. Maybe by the third, fourth, fifth year, okay, no orgy. Now we have to get rid of the wine. Okay. Next year, only a little wine. Next year, and so on and so forth. Usually, this is a process that takes time, but every stage is legitimate at that time. So year two of bagging Saturnalia, having little orgy, legitimate. Still. But third year, no. Third year, little orgy, no, that's not Christian. Right? So again, things change, but it is not illegitimate and now we got to legitimate. It is a process that if you take a picture, that picture is always was legitimate at that moment. Gotta go with that.
Now on the rest.
Oh, sorry. What was the other question? Sorry.
So, let me go back. So, the other ideas were why do make an issue of the origin of the celebration?
Oh, the other stories. Um, I don't think that this works very well with this idea of legitimacy. Because one of the things that in paper gives you legitimacy is historical precedent. So if, I mean, we actually talked about this today as well. We were saying this idea of, Ecuador is a traditional Catholic country. So there is this cultural inertia to the Catholic culture. Um, that historical sort of precedent makes something more legitimate than something that is new. So if, like, tomorrow I decide to become, I don't know, like a Protestant missionary and go to Ecuador and try to, like, go to from Catholicism to Protestantism, it's probably going to be a lot harder because in the present moment, in the present context, Protestantism doesn't have any legitimacy in the Christian context of Ecuador because it is Catholicism that is the legitimate interpretation of Christianity. So if you are trying to validate something and sort of give it more legitimacy, you may say, well, actually, I mean, I don't know the history of Protestantism in Latin America, but you may say, hey, actually, there has been a Protestant community here for the last 200 years, since so and so migrated here. And now suddenly, okay, you're going to choose wherever, now you are sort of grounded in this historical precedent. Celebrations have this need as well. Right? Like, why do we celebrate Christmas at all? For other people, it's because, well, that's what I was taught. I mean, my parents celebrated Christmas, so I celebrate Christmas too. Maybe not in the same way, but, Christmas has been there, and they celebrate Christmas because their parents celebrated Christmas, and, sure, maybe Christian, maybe all of that, but the actual celebration of 25th of December, that's a tradition. That's a Christmas tradition. It is something that, again, how this cultural inertia that comes from the past. But there is always interest in sort of legitimizing our beliefs by showing that they have been there since the beginning. So if something I believe is the original one, that's better than if something I believe is something I just came up with. That is sort of the idea. That by looking at the past and looking at the different historical sort of precedents that lead to today, what we have today can become more meaningful, more important for the people who are looking into this or who care about this. Um, yeah, so that's kind of it. So connecting with the history is a way to connect with something on a more profound way.
Now that you mention the people, I think it's time for us to settle exactly on the individual behind the celebration. And because we're used to this idea that we're accustomed that Christmas for these dates are a space for sharing with the family. That's what I told you because that was or has been part of my tradition. But that's not the case for everyone. I mean, a lot of people is due to cultural, social, political, economic factors, anything could have happened, and all of a sudden you end up alone in a foreign country. And well, what was your natural tradition all of a sudden disappears. And I have the impression that those comments affect people more than the situation itself. I mean, the comments on how Christmas should be, or how this celebration should be, or um, when they ask you how your Christmas was, maybe it's kind of it worsens the situation because you already know you're alone, but when they ask you, all of a sudden memories and dreams and the issues come and attack you from outside, and you notice that you have lost something, right? So, what can we do to get through this season like peacefully? Because I think there's this emotional and cultural barriers that are actually hitting us more in these times. It doesn't matter if you're. Sometimes you could be in family and also feel alone. We talk about this in the loneliness crisis time. So there are people who are simply overwhelmed by sadness and end up committing some harmful issues. You know, in these times, especially in these times, they tend to take these decisions. We also have an episode talking about this kind of situations. And why is it that precisely at this time of the year, and why does it affect uh, even those who are distant from the religion? I mean, I've seen and I had a lot of atheist friends who tend to be more affected for this seasonal depression, using wrongly the term, but like seasonal depression, uh, than actually believers.
Mm-hmm.
And also, how do we put it on this like a brave face during
Mm-hmm.
these holidays and bring out what is actually beneficial and positive, so that no matter the circumstances, you can actually enjoy the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think you said it very well. I think there is this sort of duality to this issue, right? When on one hand it's all about happiness and celebration and family or whatever, but for other people it's the opposite. It is a reminder of being alone. It is a reminder of all the things that have gone wrong or whatever. I don't know if there is a way to turn it like around like 100%. To go from, this is a hard time to, wow, I'm now having the type of life. I think that would be very challenging. And I think that would take a couple of years, probably, like a couple of Christmases of slowly making things better. I think maybe could get there. However, I think that the way to get there or the way to start moving there, if if you know you're someone that have a hard time around the end of the year. So I would say they're like let's split this into two sort of categories. Like the team that depend on you alone, and the team that maybe you can do with other people. And I separate it because there is a range of possibilities here. Like some people may be physically alone, but may have people they can call, or maybe they have a video call online with their family or things like that. There may be people who are physically alone and also don't really have anybody to call, don't really have anybody to sort of communicate in that sense, right? So that's why I'm going to split them into. Let's begin with this one, which is if you do have like people that you are connected with, even if you are physically separate. I think in that case, the recommendation is try to look for activities that can be shared and you are comfortable with, that don't take a lot of effort, right? So I have seen these where sometimes people will be like, oh, so, they invited me to the video call. But while I was looking at the video call was all of them having fun while I'm here in the dark looking at my phone, right? So when I say something that you're comfortable with and that sort of actually makes you part of the moment, I mean maybe it's a one-on-one talk with like different people. Maybe they take turns to talk to you, right? Something like that, if that can be organized, right? Maybe it's a smaller meeting where instead of having 20 people, it's just three of us. And okay, we can have the iPad in the middle and we are all conversing and sharing food, and maybe you are eating as well wherever you are, and that kind of organization, right? Where when I say do something, I mean that. I mean you involve I mean, last episode we talked about engaging. I mean, you engage, not you watching them have a good time. I mean, you engage with the celebration, right? So maybe they can play games. Maybe you can read things out loud, exchange letters. Well, a little bit too late now because it's 24th, but maybe for next year, you can exchange gifts ahead of time and open them on the 24th together, for example. So that kind of idea. So when there is a social connection that still exists and you get along well with them and you actually like spending time with them, the recommendation is try to do it. Like try to figure out something that is actually an engaging activity and not just me watching, right? Like, again, sort of um there needs to be some work put into this, right? Like it is important to admit that this is a challenge that we have to work to sort of resolve. So there will be some work to be put into this, right? It won't be as easy as turning on the camera and putting a table and doing everything the same way we do, right? It will take more work than that. When that is not possible, when there isn't that social circle, when there isn't that social connection, or where you are not comfortable with that social connection, you don't like the people that you could talk to. The basic recommendation would be to still try to get some sort of human contact. Um, Maybe go out to a restaurant and just have something. If there is a neighborhood celebration, if there is a church celebration, if there is a work celebration, to sort of go to that, to sort of um, I don't know if getting the spirit is the right thing to say, but to sort of participate of the celebration in a way that you feel comfortable doing. Um, Whether that is having the function of actually, letting you participate in the spirit of the celebration or just keeping you distracted, both are probably equally useful. So in general, trying to do something um, in a community. Again, like doing math in your dark room. That's not what I mean by doing something. I mean something with a community. I mean something with other people. I mean something with that you would be happy telling your friends or telling sharing the story at work, right? Something like that. We were talking earlier about this idea of when they ask you, "Oh, what did you do for Christmas?" You have no answer. Well, that's actually a good way to sort of guide this idea as well. Of yeah, what would be like a cool story to say, right? Like maybe yeah, I didn't have a maybe I went to an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet. Okay, that's a cool thing to do at Christmas, I guess. But that's kind of the idea. So in a way, take yourself or hold a celebration for yourself. Maybe it's not going to a buffet, but you ordering something special that you haven't eaten in a while. Maybe you cook something special that you haven't made in a while. Another recommendation in that sense would be to I mean, how does I do without making this sound accusatory? Just asking yourself, like, what led to this situation? In the sense that there are two options. Either it makes sense to you to be in this situation because you voluntarily chose it and you are, thinking about the future, or you know that this is better for you on the long term or in every day. The other 350 days of the year, this is actually a good thing, or something like that. That's one option. The other option is this was a mistake. Something is terribly wrong, and maybe there is something that you actually need to do to change the situation. I think that regardless of what the answer is, having that notion of okay, I know I either need to do something, or okay, I just need to hold out until next week or whatever. That also sort of helps make things easier to carry along. Uncertainty is usually the worst thing you can feel. So you can bring it down from uncertainty to the certainty of something horrible or the certainty of something good. That is usually an improvement. But that's another recommendation. For those, try and take a step back and look at the big picture, right? Like beyond these few days, beyond these couple of weeks at the end of the year, how does this loneliness, how does this being alone at this time sort of fit, right? Like, does it make sense? Is it part of a greater purpose? Or maybe no, you know what? Maybe on Christmas you realize I have to change my life. I have to do something about it. That's also a possibility, and if that's the case, congratulations. But that's kind of the idea. Just sort of reflecting a little bit on the situation and how you got there and what needs to be there in that time. And yeah, and if you actually like the celebration or have something to celebrate, try to get into the spirit. Like, try to wear something red. Try to watch a Christmas. I don't know if there's some people like Christmas, but like a Christmas show or a Christmas special or something you like. If you for like maybe you enjoy the celebration, not everybody does. For a lot of people, the symbols of Christmas become symbols of that cause sadness. So don't force yourself. But if they are not, try to enjoy the celebration as well. That's what I could say.
Oh, that's the dates at the end. So it's better with at least put some effort and try to move on.
Yeah, definitely takes a little
So
bit of work, I think, at the end of the day.
since that it, let's see what internet has asked today. Oh, the first question says, why do Christmas controversies feel more emotionally intense than other cultural debates?
Um, I don't know if they feel more emotionally intense than the culture do it. But I would say that's very much on purpose. Not because the algorithm optimizes for emotional intensity. So that's not an accident. So all of these things that become controversies and go viral, that's on purpose. That's because the algorithm is made to maximize emotional engagement. So I'd say all of these are going to feel like emotional charge because we were talking about the manipulation. Well, yes, because of the manipulation of the media. Because that's, again, it's not even like a give or plug, it's just money. The more time you look at the screens, the more ads I can sell you. How do I optimize for more screen time? Through emotional engagement. So that's what the algorithm optimizes.
Why do people feel lonelier during Christmas, even when they are not physically alone?
Mm. I think it's because we get exposed a lot more to ideals of
Mhm.
not being alone, right? Like we get
Mhm.
exposed to the ideals of the ideal family where everybody gets along and everybody has money and gifts and is in a good mood and doesn't take psychiatric medication. But that's not reality. That's literally a movie. That's literally a TV show, right? But I think that nonetheless, having those symbols, we were talking about how symbols build, definitely sort of emphasize when your life is not like that. And I think that for other people, that sort of amplifies feelings of loneliness, of inadequacy, or whatever.
Apparently, internet has been watching us, or are we watching too much internet? Because next question is, why does Christmas affect even people who are not religious?
Well, let me see how they answer this in a different way. Different way. You said earlier that from the beginning, like in different traditions or whatever, it has been about sharing. And I think this is the answer here as well. It's because it's not about Jesus, it's about sharing. You just happen to like sharing a lot, but it is about sharing. So I think even if you are not religious, even if you do not participate of the actual Christian tradition, the act of sharing with your family, the act of sharing with your friends, the act of sharing with somebody you love, everybody can understand that. Everybody can enjoy those things. And so if Christmas makes you face, like we said earlier, with the ideals, it makes you face that you don't have those things, or maybe you don't have them in the way that you would want to have them. It doesn't matter if you're Christian or not. You are going to feel affected by this situation.
It's also a matter of propaganda, right? Because it's always there. It's bombing you. So
Right. And there is also this idea of, maybe you do have like a family money and everything, but there's still the propaganda of it could be better. If you purchased this washing machine, your life could be even better. So there is always this idea of it's a thing on my perfect family because I don't have the new Whirlpool. Not sponsored, but the new
uh,
Whirlpool
it's a
washing
matter
machine.
of even these polar bears have a
Exactly.
family and are sharing a Coke. So
Exactly. Even they have a Christmas dinner and I have KFC.
in your face.
Mhm.
Is believing in Santa Claus psychologically harmful for children?
No, not really. It's not technically harmful for anybody, I don't think. Because it falls under any other fantasy. Like we all have fantasies of some kind. Um, I'm trying to find something negative about Santa Claus, but I can't think of anything. Um, I mean, it could be problematic if it is centered, like you said earlier, around consumption rather than sharing. Right, when Santa Claus is just a symbol for Coca-Cola, I'm not like, part of the celebration of sharing at the end of the year. I could see it being problematic like that in some way. But the idea that there is a man in the North Pole that sends you sends you gifts, that's probably not a big deal. I would say I have seen some arguments against, for example, sort of encouraging believing in Santa Claus. Not so much in the sense of it being harmful, but in the sense that, for example, if your kid goes to school believing in Santa Claus and their little classmate happens to come from a poor family where they don't have money for gifts, it will be harder for your kid to understand what's going on because for them, money gifts come from Santa Claus. But what do you mean Santa Claus didn't give you, my friend, gifts? Were you naughty? So there is some argument in that sense, right? That believing in Santa Claus can sort of invisibilize the realities of like inequality. But again, that seems a little bit like a stretch, right? I mean, kids are smart. Like, definitely the smallest of kids absolutely believe in Santa Claus. But I think the kid that's at the level of having this conversation of, I didn't get any gifts, you did, is probably also smart enough to say, yeah, probably has to do with my parents, not with Santa Claus. So, it's something to think about, something that maybe you would like to consider. That idea of uh, being more honest, just in the sense that gifts at the end of the day are a privilege, and not all kids have that privilege. So, sort of making this, being honest about this, maybe healthier for everybody. But beyond that, I don't think there would be a reason not to believe Santa Claus.
Yeah. In regard of this question, I read something about the allegory of control
Mhm.
behind Santa Claus and this idea of uh, Big Brother hidden
Right,
inside the character, right?
right.
So
Hang out what you do. I think they copy that from Christianity as well. They also got that from Jesus.
yeah, well, at the end, it is supposed to be a saint, right? So it
Mm.
was caring for the weak, Saint
Mhm.
Nicholas. But
Nico.
ah,
Mm.
what helps people navigate Christmas in a healthier way?
Mhm. I think that focusing I mean, this is really, really cliche, but I think that's focusing on the spirit of Christmas rather than on the specific details of what the table looks like, of who's at the table, of what they think about my president. I think focusing on the spirit of Christmas, on the idea of sharing, on the idea of being together, of being thankful for the year, or whatever. I think that will help a lot of people sort of get through the holidays in a less conflictive manner. I'd say. I think that unfortunately for a lot of people, these sort of meetings are seen as the opportunity to actually help you realize that you should have voted for my candidate and not for your candidate. I think that's wrong. I mean, we should see these meetings as an opportunity to share with your family, not about as an opportunity to be right, not about as an opportunity to get them on the right way. No, just enjoy them. Like enjoy having an afternoon with somebody that you haven't seen in a while. Enjoy having an afternoon with this person. And if you can't, because it may be that you hate everybody in your family, then just be honest about it and don't hang out with them and find somebody else to hang out with. There's also that other element. Like the same way that for other people, the way to enjoy Christmas is to just find peace with what they have. For other people, the way to enjoy Christmas is to build something new, to build a new space with whom to spend the Christmas. Again, kind of difficult to do from the 24th or the 25th, but maybe it can be like a project for next year for somebody who's watching this. Definitely more about that thing. And doing anything in particular because it's going to look different from house to house.
Very well. So I think we're getting to the last part of this session. I'd like to thank you because I think we've been talking about a lot of topics around the same topic at
Mm-mm.
the same time.
Mm-mm.
And it's been quite interesting seeing how everything connects at some point. So, uh, culture is a complex issue, and understanding how it is embedded in our psyche and how it works out our behavior also helps us understand a little more about ourselves and how we can work out the things that are not working good inside ourselves. I mean, it's kind of complex to accept that you actually need to do something.
Mm-mm.
And looking like the big spectrum and then getting into the smaller parts somehow help us notice that maybe I'm feeling shit and alone during Christmas because I decided to do shit alone stuff. So
Mm-mm. Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
I do get into narco cartel culture, so that's the reason why.
Maybe that's it. Or maybe you need to get into agriculture for you wouldn't be alone on Christmas. You could be with the
And have your Christmas.
yeah. You could be shooting guns with the neighbor next door.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
whatever the reason is, uh, anything to comment, Josh,
No,
before we get to the last part?
no. I think this has been a pretty interesting one. Um, yeah, I mean, maybe just to compliment what you said. I don't know. I never actually read these like in Freud's paper, but I've heard this attributed to him, this phrase. And sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. I would say the same thing about like Father Christmas. Sometimes maybe Jesus is just baby Jesus. It's not about anything else other than enjoying the nice decoration in somebody's house. And that's okay too. Like, you try to find the balance, I'd say, between don't get too disengaged if you feel like you want to disengage. Don't get too engaged if you feel like you don't want to engage. Try to find a balance that makes sense to you and lets you enjoy the celebration in a way that makes sense to you. That doesn't in a way that the Christmas cheer makes sense to you, rather than the Christmas cheer being something that stresses you out. That's what I could say. I think.
If you want to connect with your religious part, well, you can always pray for 9 days before Christmas comes. Uh, Enjoy your stays at your local church, and of course, sing with your family and friends for the coming of Jesus while you're in that kind of situation,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sacrifice your time because it is sacrifice and giving. So if you're gonna get into that, commit.
Yes, exactly. Not only the part that you like, do the part that you are also don't like. You have to serve the people around you on your stake. Mhm.
Also, a way to get like in company, right? Being part of something. If you're feeling alone, maybe it will help you.
Yeah, definitely. I think that building things together, doing projects together, that kind of stuff, absolutely is another way to feel accompanied. Especially for people who may not be great at like talking or like having that social like, oh, let's chat for 2 hours. Doing something together where you're going to talk to me because you're going to be focused is also a great way to have that community experience without the social necessarily difficulty of having to talk. Mm.
Very well. So, Christmas is not a test of correctness, tradition, or conformity, but an invitation to pause, stop, to connect, and to extend goodwill. Let's put it in those words.
Um,
Whatever form it takes, right? Religious or secular, doesn't matter. Quiet or communal, allowing others the freedom to celebrate and ourselves the permission to find joy without judgment may be the most meaningful way to honor the season.
yeah, definitely. I think it's about yourself and creating in a way that makes sense to you. It is about finding your place, whether that is somewhere you have always been or somewhere new. And like I said, it is this about sharing, not only with your immediate family, but with the people around you. Um, may not be as fortunate as you are as well. Um, but yeah, no, I think that's been for me as well. Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope you enjoy the celebration.
Merry Christmas to everyone. Enjoy these days. Try to have fun. Try to pause. It's important. And we'll see you next week, hopefully,
Yeah, take care. Do
on
all
the
your
end of the
stuff
year.
well. At the end of the year as well. Yeah, I'll see you. We'll see you then.
Peace out.
Peace. Take care.
Bye.